What's your favorite scary movie?
You can't save them. All you can do is watch.
I think it's pretty clear who the killer is at this point.
Let's play a little game.
I'm afraid someone's gotta die now.
There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
Scream absolutely changed the horror landscape when it released to the world in 1996. A slew of imitators came along, but were never able to capture the spirit of Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson's classic meta slasher. And each sequel released has further dissected the type of film that they represent, making it a series that simultaneously examines its own existence. So join us as we dive into all 14 Ghostface killers. No, not that one. As we tell you what the f you need to know about the Scream franchise. It should go without saying for a series that is supposed to tell you what you need to know about a franchise, but needless to say, we're going to spoil the shit out of these films. And given how important the mystery element is to them, you may not like that. So do yourself a favor and go watch these movies immediately. Otherwise, here's your nice little refresher. Kevin Williamson wrote the script for Scream, originally titled Scary Movie, in the mid-90s, and it instantly became the subject of a bidding war. Through Miramax, Dimension Films won the rights and approached acclaimed horror director Wes Craven to helm the picture. And the rest is history, and these two combine for one of the best writer-director pairings in modern history. One of the ways that Scream really stands out above the rest is its acknowledgement of stereotypes in horror movies. But honestly, there's really only one person who can explain this one, so Randy, take it away.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. Number 1, you can never have sex. Big no-no! Sex equals death. Okay, number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back. Push the laws and you end up dead. Okay, I'll see you in the kitchen with a knife.
Usually for these videos, the killer section is quite tame, as I often just have one to talk about, with various actors having played the same role. But here we've got a new bad guy for every film, and with the exception of the third one, 2 of them for each entry. That's not even getting into the last one, which really ups the game. And there's nothing quite like the Ghostface reveal.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
The entire film is leading up to these moments, and the payoff is always spectacular. We've got a lot to go over, so let's break down all of our different Ghostfaces. Ghostface himself wears a long black robe and has a white ghostly face with deep black eyes and an elongated mouth. His weapon of choice is usually a knife, and he has a tendency to wipe the blood from his blade. He also likes to call his victims and test their horror movie knowledge with a very creepy voice changer. Oh, and sometimes he is not even a he. So let's get into it.
Hello, Sydney.
In the first Scream, we had Billy Loomis and Stu Macher. Billy's father had cheated on his mother with Maureen Prescott, Sydney's mother. Billy's mother proceeded to leave them, and Billy concocted this plan to murder Sydney and her friends, all while blaming Sydney's dad. Stu is eventually killed by Sydney when she drops a TV on his head, and then she also shoots Billy in the head.
Surprise, Sydney.
Scream 2 gave us Mickey and Mrs. Loomis. Loomis was obviously out for revenge against Sydney for the death of her son. Meanwhile, Mickey was just a psychopath obsessed with movies. They happened to meet on an internet message board and plan this all out. Unfortunately for Mickey though, Mrs. Loomis had no intention of letting him live. Meanwhile, Sydney made sure she wasn't coming back from the dead. Mickey, on the other hand, needed a little something extra.
Introducing Sydney, the victim. Sydney, the survivor. Sydney, the star!
Scream 3 revealed that Maureen Prescott had actually had a bastard child named Roman Bridger, who would go on to be a director in Hollywood. He took out all of his frustrations over being abandoned by his mother and sought to destroy Sydney's life. It's revealed that he's the one that put the idea into Billy and Stu's head. He's something of a mastermind behind it all. And while Sydney gets to stab him a bit, it's Dewey who gets to finally off him.
New movie, new franchise. There's only room for one lead, and let's face it, your ingenue days, they're over.
Scream 4 decided to switch things up a bit by having Sydney's cousin Jill resentful of Sydney's spotlight. So with the help of Charlie Walker, they mastermind a plan to kill off the original Woodsboro survivors and create a whole new legacy. Unfortunately, Charlie doesn't realize how batshit insane Jill is, because she plans on being the sole survivor. So she kills Charlie and thinks she's gotten away with it. Only we know better, don't we? And she eventually gets electrocuted and then shot in the chest by Sydney.
Really should have listened to Dewey. He nailed it in one. Dude, look at the love interest. Are you fucking stupid? I even had you convinced it could be your sister.
Scream 5 brought us something different with Richie and Amber, two stab fans that are desperate to see their favorite film series return to greatness. And with all of the best films in the series being based on true events, they try and make a bloody sequel all their own. But unfortunately for them, they fucked with the wrong people, and Richie is stabbed by Sam 21 times, then has his throat slit, and then is shot 3 different times. Amber doesn't have it much better, getting shot 3 times, lit on fire, and finally put out of her misery with a bullet to the head.
I'm something different.
Then Scream 6 goes back to the roots of revenge, with Richie's family taking their vengeance out on Samantha Carpenter for his murder. Ethan, Quinn, and their father, Detective Wayne Bailey, look to take out anyone involved with Richie's death and make them suffer. Given their motivation, there's a certain brutality to their kills, and it marks the first time in the series we ever get 3 different people as Ghostface. And as much as I want to show you how all of them die, that footage isn't out in the wild yet. 6 also provides us with another set of killers, Jason Carvey and his roommate Greg, who want to continue Richie's film. But these two were both offed in the film's opening scenes. That means we've had 13 different Ghostfaces over the years. You could even go as far as 14 because the roommate in 6 is presumed to have been in the mask at some point, we just don't see it. And they absolutely love to tease Sam eventually taking on her father's mantle. But we're going with the actual Ghostfaces who maliciously killed someone. While there have been plenty of different Ghostfaces over the years, the voice has always been consistent. Roger L. Jackson. Scream also manages to be a series that has a film series within its fictional universe that mostly parallels that of the franchise we know. It starts to deviate though once Stab 4 hits the picture, as they start making films that aren't based on real life, aka the Scream films. There are some fun instances of the film within a film universe, with cameos from the likes of Tori Spelling, Luke Wilson, and even Heather Graham. We also see the IMDb of the first Stab on Tara's phone in the 5th film. They even name drop Rian Johnson as having directed Stab 8, paralleling his involvement with The Last Jedi.
I just want you to be safe up there. Do you have a gun?
I'm Sydney fucking Prescott. Of course I have a gun.
The Scream series is always a whodunit that provides plenty of thrills during its runtime. They usually involve Sydney Prescott being tormented by some killers, and her losing some friends in the process. Ghostface likes to call and toy with his victims, often in Woodsboro, California. And there's always an opening kill. So we're going to just go over some of the big parts from each film.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
Scream broke onto the scene in 1996 and absolutely blew the minds of audiences everywhere. Drew Barrymore's Casey Becker seemed to be the lead, only to get killed off in the film's opening. Then Sydney Prescott takes over and enters the hearts of viewers everywhere. The entire third act set piece at Stu Macher's house is just a pacing masterclass. And this shows how you can reference other horror movies in a fun way. Body count 8 victims. This one is just chock full of memorable characters. Sydney Prescott is one of the best horror leads of all time, and absolutely rules every time she's on screen. Gale Weather somehow manages to be endearing while still being a raging bitch. Officer Dewey Riley is a lovable doofus who has the lives of a cat. And finally, Randy Meeks has more horror movie knowledge than anyone on the planet. These four carry through to many of the films and start off so damn strong here. Then Billy and Stu may just be the most memorable killers we've ever had.
My motive isn't as 90s as Mickey's. Mine is just good old-fashioned revenge.
Scream 2 came less than 1 year later in 1997 and saw Sydney and the remaining survivors head off to college. But after Mrs. Will Smith and Omar Epps get murdered while watching Stab, it's clear that someone's trying to make their own sequel. Unfortunately, we see the death of Randy, which is still shocking to this day. There's also an extremely tense bit with Sydney and her roommate creeping over a passed out Ghostface. We ended a massive encounter at a theater. Body count 10 victims. Unfortunately, outside of the originals, there aren't many new people introduced that leave that much of an impact, outside of Killer Mickey. Although falsely accused killer from the first film, Cotton Weary, finally gets a little more of a chance to shine.
All I know about movie trilogies is that in the third one, all bets are off.
Scream 3 released in 2000 and took the setting to Hollywood. Following the filming of Stab 3, someone starts offing cast members. Cotton Weary gets killed in the opening scene and we get a ton of Hollywood fake-outs. But otherwise, the convoluted plot gets pretty out of control by the time we get to the third act reveal. Even the new element of a voice changer that can mimic anyone else's voice comes across as just a cheap ploy. Body count 10 victims. The whole cast is full of stinkers, so I'll give a special shout out to Patrick Warburton. Oh, you deserve so much more than just a knife in the back.
You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original.
2010 brought us Wes Craven's final movie with Scream 4. This returns to Woodsboro and takes on the remake trend of the era. Don't be fooled though, we still see the return of Sydney, Gale, and Dewey. The film ends at Kirby's house, almost reminiscing the first film. And it almost seems like the killer is actually going to get away with it. Body count 11 victims. Kirby is essentially the Randy of this film, and as such is easily the standout. Jill and Charlie have their moments, but it's Kirby's show all the way.
You know, it's like scary, but with complex emotional and thematic underpinnings. It's not just some schlocky cheeseball nonsense with wall-to-wall jump scares.
Bringing things back to the more simplistic times of the original, 2022 brought us Scream 5. Or is it Scream 2022? Or just Scream? Well, we're calling it Scream 5, damn it. This sees Billy's daughter Samantha being lured back to Woodsboro in order to frame her for some murders. We even get some Ghost Billy action. The third act takes place in Stu Macher's old house and has plenty of great parallels with the original. We also saw the death of Dewey Riley, which ruffled the feathers of some fans. And this is actually the first Scream film where the opening kill actually isn't a kill. Body count 7 victims. We managed to get a host of awesome characters with the Carpenter sisters, Tara and Sam, as well as the introduction of the Meeks twins, Chad and Mindy. I also enjoyed the preparedness of Wes Hicks. Plus, I mean, his name is Wes.
To Wes!
Beautiful son of a bitch.
And of course, our killers, Richie and Amber, really stand out, even if Amber is a tad on the whiny side.
Strange that you and I have never spoken on the phone. This is long overdue.
Scream 6 came to us earlier in 2023 and continued the stories of the survivors from the fifth film. They've now jetted off to New York, Friday Part 8 style, and are being hunted by someone trying to take revenge for the killings in 5. Ghostface is absolutely brutal here and even totes a shotgun, a franchise first. And speaking of franchise first, this is actually the first time where we don't have Sydney Prescott returning, although we do hear about her. There's also a beautiful display of all the memorabilia from events from the Scream films. Body count 8 victims. Despite being one of the killers, Quinn is quite memorable as the sex-positive roommate. then Jason Carvey may be the most that we actually get to spend with a Ghostface and provide some fresh insight. Then of course we had the return of Kirby, which I mean, come on. Now, as far as movies you absolutely cannot miss, what you can see if you have the chance, and what you can skip, this one is pretty easy, probably our easiest yet. First, we're going to start with what you can skip. This one's really easy, as Scream 3 is pretty widely disliked, and despite its best intentions, it's actually the least impactful of the entire franchise. In terms of films you should check out if time permits, well, this list is empty because I'd consider the remaining Scream films to be absolutely essential viewing. Each film builds on itself in such a satisfying way that by the time you reach the sixth one, you've taken part in a wonderful journey that dissects the slasher genre. Scream 6 just released upon the world and was the biggest opening of the entire franchise. And with the filmmakers' enthusiasm towards the series, it seems like only a matter of time until we get a seventh entry. When that will be is anyone's guess, but I'm sure there will be a Ghostface or two to talk about when it finally does. What do you think of the Scream series? Which is your favorite? What's your favorite character? And most importantly, what's your favorite scary movie? Comment below and we'll see you in the next one.
Comes a tall, handsome man in a dusty black coat with a red right hand.